We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Tuesday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We're getting the screen adjusted here. I'll tell you what, we got ourselves a jam-packed Tuesday night show, a lot to discuss. Okay, so we're going to open. College football is now just a few days away. I'm starting to worry about one college football team in the SEC and if their coach is about to torpedo their season or not. We'll explain that. From there, we'll talk a couple odds and ends in college football. Auburn, reclaiming multiple national championships. Coach O wants to come back. On the basketball side, John Wall has announced his retirement officially. I believe he might be the most influential college basketball player of maybe not my lifetime, but certainly of the 21st century. And then we'll wrap Dan Hurley with some very interesting comments. Busy show, fun show. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We really do appreciate your support. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. As you can see on the screen here, before we get started, we also have to shout out some of our newest friends, our newest partners. So fired up to get going here with Circa Sportsbook and Circa Casinos across the country. Okay, so it's that time of year. College football is here, and we are so fired up to be working with Circa Resort and Casino. Producer Matt and I will be out in Las Vegas Thursday, Friday for their contest weekend. Of course, the Circa Millions, Circa Survivor, two incredible events. But the thing that I really want to emphasize to all of you on the East Coast is that this Saturday is a very important Saturday for Circa as well. And that is because they are opening their new sports book. How about this? Franklin, Kentucky, Mint, Kentucky Downs, and they're kicking it off with a bang. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Circa brand, Derek Stevens, who I've gotten to know a little bit, I like and respect. He is the owner of all of these Circa properties. He doesn't do anything small, okay? And so on Saturday in the Franklin, Kentucky facility, this is the deal. They are having a launch party 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. They're going to do all sorts of cool stuff. They're going to have a watch party for the Sam Houston Western Kentucky game. That is one of the big week 0 matchups. Also on top of it, prizes, giveaways, things like that. And I'll tell you what, we're going to do something fun for listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. If you are visiting that Circa Sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky at any point, it could be Saturday, it could be in the future. Here is the deal. This is what I need you to do. I need you to take a picture, tag me, Aaron_Torres, tag Circa Sports, and put it on Twitter. Put it on social media. If you do, we will get you a free t-shirt out of the Aaron Torres Media merch store. Okay, so if you're a Kentucky fan, we'll get you a Hope and Pope t-shirt. If you're a Tennessee fan, if you're a Louisville fan, we'll get you Marches for Day Drinking, something nice for you, for your favorite team. But this is what we got to do. We got to let Circa know that the Torres Army rolls deep. So make sure to check out the launch party, Franklin, Kentucky, Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're going to have awesome giveaways, prizes, much, much, much more. And if you're there, tag me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres, tag Circa Sports, and I will get you a free t-shirt courtesy of the Aaron Torres Pod. So thank you to Circa. Producer Matt and I will be doing shows Thursday and Friday from the Circa property in Vegas. Also, I know who we have to thank, our friends, the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres Pod. Yeah, I'm talking about SeatGeek, okay? So SeatGeek launched with us during March Madness. And again, the Torres Army just delivered. We destroyed. They loved us. They loved working with us. And we love working with them. They are back for football season. And guess what? This is the number one ticketing app in America, over 28 million downloads, and it's for a reason. Love working with them. Love the, love how they operate. Every ticket on the entire app is graded 1 to 10. Green means great. Green means go ahead and purchase. Red means no. You don't want nothing to do with that. But they take care of their customers. They look out for their customers. And again, there is a reason SeatGeek is the number one ticketing app in America. You know what's even better about SeatGeek? They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so how about this? If you go to SeatGeek.com, or if you click the link in the show description, okay, SeatGeek.com or the link down below, this is what you got to do. If you use promo code Torres, Torres, they will give you $20 off your first purchase. Could be college football, could be NFL preseason, Major League Baseball, concert, show, whatever. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. Thank you, SeatGeek, for your support of the Aaron Torres pod. With that said, it is a busy Tuesday night. There is no more time to waste, so let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, as I said, college football is here. College football is coming. We got a lot to break down over the next 10 or so days heading into week one. But I got to be totally transparent. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about one SEC program, a coach that I like, that I admire, that I respect, but things just feel weird. It is the Auburn Tigers, obviously coached by Hugh Freeze, okay? And so bottom line is this. Listen, first of all, it's a huge year in the SEC for any number of schools. For Arkansas and Sam Pittman, for Mark Stoops in Kentucky, for Billy Napier in Florida. You go on and on and on down the list. A lot is at stake in a lot of places. Brent Venables at Oklahoma. But to me, listen, I think all of them, there are reasons for excitement. I think all of them, there are reasons for concern. But it's mostly been a pretty quiet camp, pretty much ever, except for John Mateer Venmo Gate and DJ Lagway Boot Gate. I think it's been pretty quiet in all of these places. But the thing about Auburn, it just feels like it's one story after another. And again, I have defended Hugh Freeze through the years. When he criticized his quarterbacks for too many turnovers last year, I said, well, what do you want him to say? His quarterbacks are turning the ball over too much. When people were blaming him for playing too much golf over the last couple months, I said, listen, he's got a stacked roster. The 2026 recruiting class is going to be small. I defended him. Heck, I don't think we talked about it. Even when he said, you know what we need in the SEC? Length and girth. You need a lot of length and girth in the SEC. I chuckled, but I didn't criticize, okay? And so the bottom line is, listen, I think there's a lot of nonsense offseason stories, but I will say there's a couple things that have popped on my radar that are kind of got me worried about, like, what the heck is kind of going on at Auburn right now? So let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing, heading into week one, they play Baylor on a Friday night, by the way. Producer Matt's going to be there. Matt, I'm wishing you nothing but the best because you need to come back in a good mood on Saturday and Sunday in week one, ready to work. But I bring it up because week one, they play Baylor. It's a big game, okay? And so I saw this story late last week. I glossed it over, but when you combine it with another story that has come out, I think it's worth discussing. This story, apparently through all the press availabilities or whatever, there has been conversation about who's actually the play caller, right? Because Hugh Freeze in the past has hired offensive coordinators. Hugh Freeze in the past has called plays. Well, a few days ago, this was actually via Lane Kiffin's Twitter feed. I saw this. Yes, Lane Kiffin, the troll. But let's just pop up the first tweet, Matt, about play calling. So this is from Justin Hawkinson, who, of course, covers Auburn. He's one of the great Auburn beat writers they have. This is what he tweeted late last week about the state of play calling at Auburn. Since we spoke with Derek Nix is the offensive coordinator, and Kent Austin yesterday. Kent Austin is the quarterback's coach. Just to reiterate, I can't believe this. Nix, the offensive coordinator, handles first down strategy and play calling. Kent Austin handles third down strategy and play calling. And as Nix said of Hugh Freeze, head coach has the authority to overrule anything we do or say. How often does Freeze overrule? Kent Austin was asked. He said, quote, it depends on how the game is going, but he's highly involved To me, he is an outstanding play caller, and I've learned a ton. I've learned everything from working with him. All right, let me say this. I'm always careful to criticize strategy. I'm always careful. I'm not the guy that comes on shows after a big basketball game and that baseline out of bounds play. How could you do that? What are you? That's not my lane. Hugh Freeze knows more about football than I do, just like Brian Kelly does, just like Brent Venables does, just like Kalen DeBoer does, just like every single person in that Auburn football facility does. At the same time, can we all acknowledge it feels a little weird that a week before week one, the coaching staff is openly acknowledging that there are 3 different play callers at 3 different downs over the course of an offensive series, and that the head coach can overrule at any single time. Listen, I've heard of all sorts of things. I don't know that I've ever heard of 3 different play callers per series with one guy with the ability to overrule at any given time, okay? So that's weird. That's strange. Never heard of that before. It does not get better with the second piece of news. And the second piece of news is pretty straightforward. We are at the point of fall camp. We're naming starters everywhere. Bear Bachmeier at BYU was named starting quarterback today by BYU, freshman quarterback. Will it work? Will it not? Doesn't matter. He's the starter week 1. Julian Sayin, named starting quarterback at Ohio State, week 1. Joey Aguilar, named starting quarterback, Tennessee, week 1. You go on. Every school has decided to name their starting quarterback heading into week 1, except for Auburn, who earlier this week announced that Hugh Freeze did his coaches show, and he said, according to Justin Hawkinson, that on Tiger Talk, that all 3 quarterbacks could play in the opener against Baylor. The 3 quarterbacks, by the way, Jackson Arnold transfer from Oklahoma, Ashton Daniels transfer from Stanford, and also the true freshman Deuce Knight, who everybody's excited about. So, to recap, for those of us who are just joining, for those of us who did not see it live, Auburn has 3 different play callers on any given offensive series that can be overruled at any given time, and they could play 3 quarterbacks. Now, to be clear, maybe Hugh Freeze is totally trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Maybe he's trying to keep Baylor on their toes and prepare for 3 different guys. All I will say is a couple things. 1, I don't question Hugh Freeze's football acumen, but if Ryan Day can name a starter and Josh Heupel can name a starter, it's probably just best to name a starter publicly, okay? But 2, here is my big takeaway, okay? Remember, has your parents ever told you, like your parents or a guidance counselor or an advisor or whatever, when somebody tells you who they are, listen to them? Well, I have come to this conclusion in college football, in sports in general. When a college football program or an NFL organization or whatever, when they tell you who they are, listen. And right now, I hate to say it, but Auburn seems a little bit dysfunctional. Okay, so bottom line is, like I said, this isn't just an Auburn thing. You know, Cleveland Browns, they've been telling us for 2 decades, 3 decades that they're dysfunctional. Kind of proven it time and time again. New York Jets, every single year, it's a new circus in town. If they tell you who they are, believe them. By the way, you know what this actually kind of reminds me of? Texas A&M, right? Because I was the last person on Jimbo Fisher Island. And I think Jimbo Fisher, by the way, was a little bit of a unique deal. He obviously got paid so much money, got that huge extension. So even that was kind of unique unto itself. But I remember just like trying to defend Hugh Freeze or trying to defend Jimbo Fisher, excuse me. And eventually it just got to like, you know what it kind of reminded me of? You know the line in Mean Girls, stop trying to make fetch a thing or fletch a thing or whatever. Sorry, been a while since I've quoted Mean Girls. That's kind of how it got with Jimbo Fisher. It's like, stop trying to make Jimbo Fisher a thing. It's not going to work out. He's not the right guy. He's not going to get it done. And I'm not quite there with Auburn yet, but I'm getting close. Because like I said, I've been a Hugh Freeze defender. I defended him last year when he threw his quarterbacks under the bus. I defended him with the golf. And I will say this. There is absolutely reason to believe that this team could be good this year. They had a top 20 defense. I think people forget that. And I think the other thing is, even though they went 5-7 a year ago, it is worth acknowledging 4 of those losses could have easily been wins. They had more than 100 plus yards of total off. They had 100 more yards of total offense, than Arkansas lost. Cal, They had 5 offensive turnovers, lost by a touchdown. Oklahoma, I don't know, a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, lost. Missouri, a 20-3 lead in the second half, lost. So the point I'm trying to make is Auburn easily, even though they went 5-7. By the way, producer Matt's getting PTSD behind the scenes here. I'm sorry, buddy. But as easily as they went 5-7, they easily could have been 7-5. They could have been 9-3, but I think 7-5 would have been perfectly logical for last season. But at the same time, I just keep going back to when there are just narratives and stories and one thing after the other, you just got to start to worry a little bit. And so with Auburn, I will say, like I said, there is a pathway to a successful season. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Now, the schedule starts off tough, as I said, with Baylor early in the season. Baylor is a team that in theory could be, I think frankly could be the Big 12 champ. I saw my buddy Brandon Walker from Barstool Sports. Don't know Brandon well, but I respect the hell out of his college football opinions. He picked Baylor to win the Big 12. But you have Baylor early. You have at Oklahoma, at A&M to open the SEC slate. But once you get past those games, relatively manageable outside of Georgia and Alabama. You get Missouri at home. You get Kentucky at home. You got to go to Vandy where you won a few years ago. And oh, by the way, you also get Arkansas, and we all know what's going on at Arkansas. So I just bring it up because the pathway is there, but I just keep going back to what I said. When a college football program tells you who they are, go ahead and believe them. And so right now, Auburn is a total stay away to me. I'm officially nervous. I'm officially worried. The good news is I think we'll get some sort of clarification week 1. If it is a total train wreck with multiple quarterbacks, multiple penalties, procedural penalties because they can't get in the play, then I think we worry. If not, then we sit there and say, okay, Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing. If they can get that win, I think they can have a very successful season because, like I said, all of a sudden it changes the entire dynamic of the entire year, basically. But again, for the last time, when a college football program tells you who they are, go ahead and just accept it because right now things are weird there. They're the only team in America that seems comfortable playing 3 QBs, only team in America with 3 different play callers. Hope I'm wrong, like Hugh Freeze. We'll see if I am. Really quickly, just a couple other college football news and notes. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on each of these topics. One busy week at Auburn. Cam Newton is going to have his jersey retired later this year. Cam Newton is the best college football player that I have personally ever seen. So I think there's that, and there's that's worth noting. Also, I saw this today. Auburn now, they announced earlier today. So today is what's today? Today is Tuesday? That in addition to the national championships that they have claimed, now they have 2 official national championships, okay? They have national championship in 1957 and 2010. The media guide also acknowledges that they are the 1913, 1983, and 1993 national champs. Well, Auburn, I don't think they announced it. I think Hawkinson just broke the story. 4 more national championships have been claimed by Auburn. 1910, 1914, 1958, 2004. Couple thoughts here. One, I don't get like unclaimed national championship culture. Like maybe it's because I didn't grow up in whatever, the SEC. I know like Army has a bunch of unclaimed national I don't get that culture. I thought the UCF claiming a national championship a few years ago was pretty funny, but I think we all kind of were like, whatever, dude. There was a 14 playoff. You weren't invited. Get over it. Suck it up, Buttercup. But like, I don't really know what to make of this story. 2004, listen, it sucked. It was a BCS era. There were 3 undefeated power conference teams. USC and Oklahoma got the invite. Auburn got screwed. It's kind of funny to think about the SEC not getting an invite if 3 teams are undefeated, but that is what happened with Auburn. But it doesn't change the fact that it sucks. I don't know that it's your national championship. So there's that part of it. The other part of it, like, again, I don't know what to make of it because on the one hand, I look at it and I say Auburn fans, and producer Matt, who's been crushing it on the Torres on Auburn page, is like Auburn fans are like ecstatic about this. We deserve this. We deserve that. The 1983 season, this happened, blah, blah, blah. I think everybody else in college football is just kind of like, I don't really know about this one. So anyway, I could go on and on, but to me, the unclaimed national championship culture is weird. Auburn with now 4 more national championships. I also think, by the way, timing of this is weird as well. John Cohen, the AD, didn't officially announce it, but he did release a statement about it. Just kind of feels like if you're going to do this, maybe do it in May or June, but 2 weeks before the season when things are already starting to feel a little bit weird around the program. Don't know that I love it, but what does my opinion matter in things of this nature? Auburn, 4 more national championships since the last time that you woke up, since you woke up yesterday. All right, really quickly, one more other football story. This is another one we're not going to spend a ton of time on because it's really about 2 full days old right now. Coach O, Ed Orgeron, Pardon My Take, was on Sunday night, Pardon My Take. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. Coach O is the best. I love Coach O. I miss him being part of college football. And I think as we get deeper and deeper into this NIL portal era, I think we're going to appreciate that 2019 LSU team for what it was. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, 14 players drafted off that team the following year, plus Jamar Chase gets drafted. So many guys weren't even draft eligible after that 2019 championship team. Jamar Chase, Derek Stingley. I mean, it was just an absurdly stacked roster. And Coach O, whatever you think of him, all-time season. And it was a great moment, and it's LSU, and he's from Louisiana, and you know what that school means to him. You know what football means to the state. You know that with due respect to Brian Kelly and whatever, there's only one Coach O, and that dude, Louisiana seeps out of his pores. Well, I bring it up because he was on Pardon My Take earlier this week. He's been out of coaching since he got fired in 2021. And if you remember, they gave him that huge buyout, and he said, "What door do you want me out, and how soon do you want me out?" or something to that effect. And he's been kind of quiet ever since then. I mean, every once in a while, you'll see a video of him running on the beach, or you'll see a video of him at a player's wedding or something like that. But he's kept a pretty low profile. Well, I bring it up because he was asked by the Pardon My Take guys, "Coach, are you coaching again at any point?" And he basically said, "Yeah, with the right opportunity, I think it's time," is the exact quote. Excuse me. "I'm feeling it a little bit. Haven't made any decision totally, but I've got my boys settled, coaching football now. It's been 4 years since I've been out of football. I'm getting the itch again to coach." So basically, sounds like Coach O wants back in college football. I mean, I assume it's college football. I know he briefly had a stint with the Saints. I'll say this. I absolutely love it. And I think there's actually one position that I'm actually surprised that he hasn't gotten more consideration for. Now, to be clear, we just talked about Auburn. Kentucky, who knows, may need a coach, next year. Arkansas may need a coach a year from now. I'm not going to do the 9-minute Arkansas needs to hire Coach O. I don't believe that. I don't think he would be the best candidate for them, or Kentucky, or Oklahoma if Brent Venables fails, or whatever. What I have thought about quite a bit, though, in this world where we now have basically NFL-style front offices coming to college football, I don't really understand why no one has hired him as a GM, right? With due respect, right? What was the criticism of Coach O when he was the head coach? Had never been a play caller at any level, never been a coordinator. He had been a head coach, but never been a coordinator at any level. Gets to LSU, really relied on Dave Aranda for the defense, for Joe Brady and Steve Ensminger for the offense. And when those guys left, everything kind of fell apart. And so to me, I think the right head coaching job in college would make sense. If John Summerall, who I know every Kentucky fan and a lot of Auburn fans want to be their next head coach, if John Summerall leaves, maybe Tulane makes sense in New Orleans. He's from New Orleans. You get it. To me, though, why hasn't anyone hired Ed Orgeron as their GM? As a matter of fact, I thought Lincoln Riley, when they were really struggling in recruiting a few years ago, should have hired Coach O. Now, I think the counter to that is Coach O is the world's best interim, and if Lincoln Riley, if it ever went sideways enough, they might just replace Lincoln Riley with Coach O until they find the next head coach. So I don't know. I'm not surprised that Lincoln Riley personally didn't hire him. But the counter to that is it just feels like in this player personnel world where recruiting and evaluation is bigger than it's ever been before, how has nobody hired Coach O as a head coach or as a GM, as a front office person, the director of player personnel, the person running that front office? Great talent evaluator. You go back to even that 2019 team. Joe Burrow, nobody was talking about Joe Burrow coming out of, remember, Joe Burrow left because he lost the quarterback job at Ohio State. Now, respectfully, he lost it to a good player in Dwayne Haskins, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but Joe Burrow couldn't win the job at Ohio State. Justin Jefferson, I looked this up, was the 73rd ranked wide receiver his senior year of high school in the class of 2017, I believe it was. So Coach O has always had an incredible eye for talent. You go back to some of the USC teams, some of the overlooked guys on that roster, and I just don't know why nobody has hired him as a GM yet. So Coach O wants to get back into coaching. We'll see if it happens. I don't think he is going to be any sort of high-level head coach. I don't think he's going to be back on an SEC sideline as a head coach a year from now. But would I put him in charge of my player personnel department? I absolutely would. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, chat is humming. A lot of good questions in the chat. We'll get to some of those. From there, we will switch gears and also talk a little basketball. John Wall has officially retired from basketball. I think, to me, maybe the most influential college basketball player of this century. And we'll talk about some very interesting comments from Dan Hurley. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. I do want to get to a couple hoops questions or hoops stories in just a minute. Before we do, though, we got a couple questions from the chat that I want to dive into. Producer Matt, you can pop them up. Let's see. From Jeff Dillon, Hugh Freeze, I believe, is a good guy and a good coach, but it seems like there is always some underlying drama. Jeff took the words right out of my mouth, man. Listen, by the way, I should have mentioned this. Coach Freeze obviously going through some health issues. I think that if he wasn't physically healthy enough to coach, he wouldn't be. Every video I've seen of him seems like he's well. I actually have touched base with him, after some of the reports came out, and he seems to be in good spirits. Jeff's right, though. There's always some drama, and I try to defend it. And by the way, you beat Baylor, none of it matters. You beat Baylor, it doesn't matter who's calling plays, you beat whatever. But you lose that game on the road. By the way, I'm about to sneeze for the first time ever during a live stream. Give me a half a second here. Oh, I think it went away. Yeah, you beat Baylor. Nobody cares. Counterpoint, you lose that Baylor game. A lot of people are asking a lot of questions about you. I just think it's bad news overall. What's the next question? Torres, want to hear your prediction on the ISU-KSU game in Ireland. Okay, so here's the deal. So producer Matt and I will be in Vegas on Thursday and Friday, live from Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. By the way, we'll mention the Kentucky details here again in a minute. We're going to do our over-under win total picks. We're going to have some cool interviews. So I'm going to give you my 5 favorite over-under win totals for the 2025 season. And probably Friday, we will do the Iowa State, Kansas State week 0 prediction. because I do actually have a pick for that game. So we will do all of that in the coming days. Again, Thursday and Friday, we will be live from Circa Casino and Resort in Vegas. And I should mention, if you're in Kentucky, again, the Circa Sportsbook is opening in Franklin, Kentucky this coming Saturday. Speaking of Kentucky, we'll give some more details on that Franklin, Kentucky Sportsbook in half a second. I do want to switch gears, though. I do want to talk about a basketball story that kind of came across my radar over the last, couple hours. And that is that John Wall, college basketball legend, NBA All-Star, officially announced his retirement. Okay. Now, some of you are probably sitting there saying, I didn't even know he was really playing anymore. That's not a knock. He had not played since the 2023 season. He had dealt with some injuries. I think 2 or 3 times he's tried to get back. And I think his body, it's crazy because we still think of him as the baby-faced assassin from Kentucky. I think the body just frankly just kind of gave up on him. And, to play basketball at that level, I just don't think at 32, 33, 34, whatever he is, he can keep doing it. So John Wall announces his retirement. And I think what's interesting to me, bottom line is I think obviously there's a huge segment of the world that thinks of him as the Washington Wizard, number 1 overall pick, 5-time All-Star. Listen, he never had like any crazy iconic moments. Maybe he had that one buzzer beater in the playoffs. But I mean, you think about where the Wizards were when he was there versus where they are now. I think things were better when John Wall was the face of the franchise than they are right now. Probably the least relevant franchise in all of professional basketball. When he was there, they were at least making the playoff year over year over year. With that said, this is a college sports show. And I want to talk a little bit about John Wall, the college basketball player, because to me, in my opinion, I think you could absolutely make the argument, and I'm about to make the argument here over the next 10 minutes or so. I think he's actually the most influential college basketball player of the 21st century. It sounds crazy, only spent 1 year at Kentucky, but when you look at the foundation he set, when you look at what he stood for and continues to stand for, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that he changed college basketball. And I think, frankly, in a more positive way, he made college basketball a better sport, not just because of the points and the rebounds and the assists, but because of the impact that he had. By the way, I should mention this, and I didn't even tell producer Matt this. I don't know how many people that watch this show even know this. One of my first big accomplishments as a sports media member, I wrote a book about Kentucky basketball called One in Fun. It was about that 2010 team. I interviewed John Wall. I interviewed Eric Bledsoe. I interviewed Patrick Patterson. I interviewed John Calipari. I interviewed Dwayne Peavy, who was the associate AD at that point, who now is the AD at DePaul. So 1, you could check it out. But 2, I have some credibility talking about John Wall because I did a big story for FoxSports.com, and then I wrote a book about that season, okay? But as far as why John Wall, in my opinion, is probably the most influential college basketball player maybe of the 21st century, I think it's a couple things. Because people are going to say, well, Tyler Hansbrough played 4 years, and Zach Edey won 2 national play. Okay, I get it, okay? And Purdue fans will get in the chat, and they'll get mad, and they'll get angry, whatever. But here's the bottom line. Couple things with John Wall. John Wall changed Kentucky, and John Wall changed college basketball. What do I mean by that? John Wall changed Kentucky from this perspective. I think it's easy to forget before John Calipari and in turn John Wall got there, Kentucky basketball was not the program and not the brand that it is now. Now, Kentucky basketball has always been maybe the biggest, kind of brand in college basketball. But at the same time, and everybody in the media will acknowledge this, my buddy Matt Jones talks about this all the time. Kentucky was kind of the school. They had a lot of good college players, but there weren't a ton of NBA stars, Jamal Mashburn, but there weren't very many. And it was kind of the school where the coach was bigger than the program. You had Pitino, you had Rupp, you had Joe B. Hall. And it wasn't a place that produced a lot of NBA players. And so when John Wall came, it was, Matt Jones always says this, it was never the quote unquote cool school. And then John Wall comes, he does that John Wall dance at Big Blue Madness, and it just makes Kentucky the cool school. It's the school that everybody wants to go to. It's the school that everybody wants to play at. It's the school where everybody wants to be the next John Wall. And so you have that component of it. I think the other thing too, and it's easy to forget this, is that John Wall, when he got to Kentucky, college basketball was just a completely different sport. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll tell you what, producer Matt. Before we get to the other part, again, John Wall made Kentucky the cool school. And you go back to that year, go back to all the big games. The UNC game where he hits a buzzer beater, where he goes coast to coast. Where he goes coast to coast, big dunk. The Louisville game where DeMarcus Cousins famously got in a fight and was basically, choking out a guy on the court. Every single game was an event. Every single game was big. By the way, Mississippi State, the Call Me game. Kentucky fans don't know what I'm talking about. Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. I'll tell you what, producer Matt, the Kentucky Athletic Department, when John Wall was inducted into the Kentucky Hall of Fame, put out a great highlight reel. We have approval to use this, YouTube overlords. Matt, play the 1-minute video of just everything John Wall did at Kentucky.
John Wall is a very competitive guy. I mean, very competitive. He wants to be the best point guard ever. You have to have a guy that can go make you a play. John Wall can go make you a play. Harris back to Wall. Wall's going to force one. And it goes! That's what they call wall to wall. And now Wall. The win!
First pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select John Wall from the University of Kentucky.
By the way, I missed 2 huge games when I was just talking about the big games. One, if you remember, he did not play his first game in Kentucky. The second game comes in, hits a buzzer beater to beat Miami of Ohio. 2, the first big game was against UConn at Madison Square Garden. I was at that game. It was one of the most electric atmospheres I've ever seen. And it was kind of like Kentucky's comeback moment. Okay. And so you talk about the impact that he had on the state of Kentucky. It is unbelievable. Okay. I want to talk about the impact that he had on college basketball. But while we're talking to Kentucky, I should mention, by the way, for people who have missed the news, we are working with Circa Casino and Sportsbook. They are the official hotel and gambling partner of the Aaron Torres pod. Producer Matt and I are going to be in Vegas this coming week. But why I bring it up, it is because Circa has opened, how about this, a brand new sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky. They are having the official launch party this weekend, the Mint Kentucky Downs. It will now be Circa Sportsbook. And they're having a big party this weekend, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. They're having a watch party for the Sam Houston Western Kentucky game, which is a week 0 game. And I mentioned this off the top. We're going to be doing live shows from that sports book in the coming months as we get closer to basketball. But anybody who goes to that sports book, I got a deal for you. This is what you got to do. If you go to the sports book, take a picture, tag me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres, tag Circa on Twitter at Circa Sports. I will send you a free Hope and Pope t-shirt if you're a Kentucky fan. Now, if you're a Louisville fan, a Tennessee fan, an IU fan, we'll get you a free t-shirt as well. We'll have to find something more creative, okay? But I bring it up because they are our partner. They love the presence that we have in Kentucky, but we got to show them just how big this presence is. We appreciate your support. We wouldn't have the deal without you guys. But yeah, Circa Sportsbook, we're so fired up to be working with them. We'll be in Vegas this week. But again, launch party, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., Franklin, Kentucky on Saturday. All right, John Wall. Let's keep going with John Wall because I do want to continue the conversation on him. And I do think it's easy to forget this part of it as well. When I say he's the most influential player of college basketball in the 21st century, again, Carolina fans say, what about Tyler Hansbrough? Purdue fans will definitely get mad and say, what about Zach Edey, 2-time national player of the year? Here's why John Wall is, to me, the most impactful. It is because he basically made being a one-and-done mainstream, okay? And this sounds crazy to people from a different era, but remember, the one-and-done rule came into play in the 06-07 season, okay? And it was kind of this, like, scarlet letter on college basketball. By the way, this is what my book, One in Fun, is all about. I'll throw a link to One in Fun in the the comment section or whatever, because it is still available on Amazon. But, anyone who was like a quote unquote one and done, it was like this scarlet letter to have on your team. Like, oh my God, he wants to go to college for 1 year and then go to the NBA. That's not what college basketball is about. College basketball is about education. It's about the name on the front of the jersey. And I think a lot of the primetime schools, the premier schools, really played into that. Duke, for a long time. Remember, Coach K threw a fit the first time that his players declared for the draft before exhausting their eligibility. 99, Elton Brand went pro, but then William Avery ends up going pro that same year, and he basically disowned William Avery. Roy Williams, we have no interest in these one and done guys. I mean, there's a famous story of John Wall visiting and Roy Williams basically giving him the cold shoulder. So John Wall, with the help of John Calipari, and I know that the things didn't end well for Calipari at Kentucky, but you cannot deny that those two made it mainstream. Those two made it okay to say, you know what? I'm going to come to school for a year. And guess what? I'm going to be a great student. John Wall had the highest GPA on that team. I'm going to be a great member of the community. The fans will still love me, even if they know I'm only coming for 1 year. And I can remain beloved, even if I only stay for 1 year. By the way, Matt, you could pop up the comment in there that says that one listener hopes that John Wall comes back to Kentucky in a coaching role. I mean, if you had said that in 2009, and this sounds so crazy, this sounds so stupid. This is from Brad. He said, I would like to see John Wall in some sort of coaching role at Kentucky. Brad, you speak for most of Big Blue Nation, if not all of Big Blue Nation. But in 2009, it was this thing, not at Kentucky, but on a national scale of like, oh my God, he's going to come for 1 year and leave, and Kentucky fans are just okay with that? And it's like, yeah, because he's really good, and he's going to make $100 million, if not more, playing in the NBA. He should go pro. And so Coach Cal was the innovator of that, but also with John Wall, and I've said this, and again, this is part of the book, is that, like, I don't know if Kentucky becomes the Kentucky of John Calipari if John Wall doesn't work out. In other words, and I don't think the one and done era plays out the same if John Wall doesn't work out. Like, if John Wall comes to Kentucky and he plays well, but his teammates don't like him, and he doesn't really get into being part of the community, and he, kind of has a holier than thou attitude, and Kentucky loses in the second round of the tournament, like, I don't know that the whole Calipari era plays out the way that it does. But he comes there, he's instantly the best player in college basketball. On top of being the best player in college basketball, Kentucky's awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kentucky fans, 34-3, I believe. SEC regular season champs, SEC tournament champs, Elite Eight, where, we know what happened in the Elite Eight. But I just bring it up because if it goes sideways, does Coach Cal have that sales pitch for the next 10 or 15 years? I don't know. But what I do know is John Wall came there. He was a great member of that community. As Brad said, he wants him to come back and coach. I know that John Wall has a great relationship with Mark Pope. And so I do believe he is the most impactful college basketball player of the 21st century. The first real, we're openly, again, that we're just openly acknowledging that he's a one and done. There was Greg Oden and Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, etc. But John Wall was the first one that came somewhere, it was embedded in the community, was loved by the community, left, still go. I don't know. It's just, again, I know that our under 30 crowd just thinks this is the craziest conversation in the history of sports, but go back to 2008, go back to 2009, 2010 when John Wall was at Kentucky. If this is the player empowerment era that we're living in right now, guess what? I think that, the late 2000s into the 2010s was the coaches empowerment era, and coaches wanted you to come and they wanted you to stay and they wanted to be in control. And John Wall and John Calipari basically completely changed that. So John Wall, wish him luck in retirement. I know he's doing stuff in the media, and I'm sure he'll have a very successful future. Bright guy, like I said, highest GPA on that Kentucky team. I know he's a father now. I know he's got a lot going on in his life, but just want to go ahead and congratulate him on retirement and an incredible year. By the way, producer Matt saying, this is one of those officially makes me feel old. I remember doing the John Wall dance with my basketball team in middle school. Well, guess what, producer Matt? I wasn't in middle school when John Wall was at Kentucky, so that gives you an idea of how old I am. I don't want to say I'm much older than John Wall, but I am older than John Wall. So if that makes you feel old, I don't even know what to tell you about how I feel. John Wall retiring from the NBA, from basketball, and wish him luck in the rest of his career. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take one more break. We're going to come back. When we do, we got to talk about a few different basketball topics that I do want to get to. I want to talk actually some interesting comments from Dan Hurley. So we'll come back, wrap the show. If you got any more questions, drop them in the chat. Quick break. Be right back. What's up, everybody? It's AT, and I've told you before, when I'm on the road, when I'm podcasting, sometimes you end up looking like a slob. Look at me, mismatched socks. I'm wearing shorts. What am I doing? the folks at Firebox said, Torres, let's get you some fresh gear to look better when you're on camera. Well, what do you think? This is all part of the spring collection for Firebox. These jeans, perfect when I want to go to games, casual, serious, business casual, you name it. Got the quarter zip. And oh, by the way, we got this perfect zip. This is the perfect spring, summer zip that you can wear when you're out with friends. Maybe it gets a little chilly. Maybe it's a little chilly in the morning. Perfect for all occasions. So this is what I need you to do. If you like what you see, and you should, what I need you to do is visit Firebox.com. That's Firebox.com, F-I-O-B-O-C. By the way, Firebox has a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres and get 20% off your purchase. Thank you again to Firebox. By the way, make sure that you're following them on social media at Firebox, F-I-O-B-O-C. Thank you, Firebox. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Going to get to some very interesting quotes from Dan Hurley in a minute. But before we do, we got to get to our friends. We got to get to our partners who just sent me some stuff in the mail. We got to thank our friends, Collie Puffs, okay? So Collie Puffs, I've told you their story. Family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, huge sports fan. He actually invited me to the Rams preseason game on Saturday. I could not go because I was hosting Fox Sports Radio. But bottom line is, he was sitting on his couch one day, and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something I'm going to love, something my kids are going to love. He came up with a little company called Collie Puffs. This is what you need to know about Collie Puffs. These are the healthy alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. They're baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But the best part is these babies taste delicious, okay? For more information is what I need you to do. By the way, should mention, they also have Collitos, which are basically Doritos, but for Collie Puffs. So if you want to try the Collitos, if you want to try the Collie Puffs, that's what I need you to do. Go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com. And what you got to do, put in promo code Torres. You get 15% off your purchase when you use promo code Torres. Promo code Torres, 15% off, ColliePuffs.com. They're also available on Amazon.com. Obviously, no promo code there. ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres. By the way, I should mention, if you need tickets for any game, show, or concert, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. All right, Matt, let's go ahead and wrap the show. I want to wrap the show, program that we haven't really talked about all that much over the last couple months. That's the UConn Huskies, okay? And so the bottom line with UConn, I would say this, I do think, honestly, that it's been a very quiet summer by design for Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley has said publicly, like, the last 2 summers have basically been like an extension from the season. You win a national championship. It's a lot of, ringing the stock market bell and first pitches and dinners and events and this and that. And I think in a lot of ways, I think he's been excited about getting back to coaching ball and keeping a low profile. Obviously, last summer, not this past one, but the summer before, he actually was, he went through the process with the Los Angeles Lakers. And he actually told John Rothstein last week, he's like, I didn't even think about the NBA this year. That's not in my wheelhouse right now. Well, I bring it up because it's been a busy couple days for Dan Hurley. I want to get to something that he said a few days ago. But before we get to it, though, a couple things. One, as always, make sure to follow our Torres on UConn account for all your late-breaking UConn news. Torres on UConn, that's on Twitter. But also, it's been a busy week for UConn for a couple reasons. First of all, this is the most 2025 college basketball story ever. On Monday, they got not one, but 2 different commitments for this 2025-26 season. So in other words, the season that's coming up, UConn on Monday added 2 more pieces to the puzzle. The first one, and you can see it all on the screen. And by the way, I'm going to ruin these names. 6'4" guard, Uros Paunovic. He's 22 years old. He is originally from Serbia. He joins the fray. I think I said 6'4". UConn has him officially listed at 6'3", so I'll trust UConn on that. Also, this is a very interesting one as well, and this is the name that I'm definitely going to butcher. Renzone Alejaj, who is a 7'1", 17-year-old center from Turkey. Okay. And this is where it gets interesting. So one, listen, I'll just say this before we get to the Dan Hurley quote. I really enjoy this era of college basketball because one, keep in mind, we now have 15 scholarships. Okay. And why that's important. You can actually build out real teams. You can build out real teams in college basketball now, right? So it used to be, year to year, you're flipping over your roster, you're whatever. Now with the 15 scholarships, what a lot of schools are doing is, they're prioritizing the 4, 5, 6 players that are going to be kind of that core. Maybe 2, 3 of them are kind of, the financial focal point, if you will. But then they're backfilling their rosters using those extra scholarships with developmental players, with European players, with international players, guys that can get better. And I think you're starting to see more teams being built than just individual rosters, okay? So both these guys are going to come in. I don't think either of them is frankly going to play very much of a role this year. But at the very least, Euros is a 23-year-old with a lot of experience playing overseas. At the very least, he is going to make practices much more competitive. I think he can absolutely step in if need be, if somebody gets hurt or whatever. But at the very least, he's going to be a great practice player. And, I don't know how much eligibility he'll have, but for another year or two, maybe he could be an impact player. The Renzone Alaj, I think what's interesting is Dan Hurley's actual quote on him. I'll just quote Dan Hurley. Says he's an interesting prospect, a true 7-footer who just turned 18. So I think I said 17 earlier, but he's 18. We're looking forward to bringing him into our program and working on his development. So if you're UConn, this is a perfect scenario. 7-footer, just turned 18, would be a senior in high school if he was in the States. You get him in your program, you get to develop him. And like I said, I think you get to intensify practices. I think he adds a true 7-footer that maybe the team was sort of lacking. Torres reads about 6'9", 6'10". He's physical as heck, but, I don't know that he's a 7-footer. Eric Ryba, the McDonald's All-American, can play inside, but is kind of comfortable all over the place. So anyway, UConn adds 2 players, but this is what I really want to get to here. It is the fact that I believe people are kind of sleeping on UConn, okay? So Dan Hurley appeared on John Rothstein's podcast late last week. Now, we've just been so busy with football stuff, we haven't really been able to get to it. But Dan Hurley had some very interesting comments about his 25-26 roster. I'll tell you what, producer Matt, why don't we play Dan Hurley on John Rothstein's podcast talking about this year's team?
You're going to get another crack at it here in 25-26. Give me your impression so far of the roster you've put together for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think it's a lot for me, more like the 23 team, where I do think it's it's a strength in numbers. I think the depth is what's going to make it, make it potentially a championship team or a special season for us, where like that battle with our top 10 players, you're going to have to do the things that we didn't do last year, or else you're just not going to stay on the court. So we obviously had major defensive issues last year. We had rebounding issues at times. I think obviously the health and some of the things that we tried to do at point guard this year, I think with Demery and Malachi Smith, and Alec, Melander and, Jacob Furphy, who's got some ability to play over there at 6'5" plus. I think we can, rectify a lot of our defense and rebounding. And I think the quality we've got at point guard, can solve some of those things from last year. Because if you don't defend for us this year or rebound the ball the way UConn has built its championship identity on, you're not going to play. And last year, players got minutes, that didn't guard anywhere near the level that we need them to guard at.
So that was Dan Hurley talking about his 2025-26 roster on the Inside College Basketball podcast with John Rothstein. I'll just say this. He compared this upcoming season to the 2022-2023 National Championship roster. And all I'll say is, if I was a team that had to compete with Dan Hurley and compete with UConn coming off of last year, I'd be a little bit worried right now if he's comparing it to a national championship team that dominated huge stretches of that season. Okay. So first of all, a couple things. One, by the way, for people who don't, you don't remember year to year, if you're not a UConn fan, I don't blame you. 2023 was the first of the back-to-back national championships, obviously. And frankly, kind of a completely different team, even though it was the same, a lot of the same players. But if you go back to that year, as Dan Hurley said, it was a much deeper team. That was a team where Donovan Clingan came off the bench. It was a team where, Tristan Newton kind of came along at the point guard spot, but it was a deeper team, as he said, strength in numbers. A couple key players from the year before that were returning. In the case of that year, was Adama Sanogo, Andre Jackson, Jordan Hawkins. Why it's noteworthy to me, that team destroyed people to start the season. They started the season 11-0. They went up to the they had that Phil Knight tournament in Portland that year. They went 3-0 in that tournament, destroyed everybody, started 11-0. I believe the stat was all 11 wins were by double figures. Now they got into Big East play. They struggled for about the first 5 or so weeks of Big East play, and then just destroyed everyone once they got to the postseason. Again, dominated the NCAA tournament. They didn't win the Big East tournament that year. Marquette beat them. That was the game, by the way, that Marquette, they said, they called us their second home. We just went into their home and whatever. UConn's like 6-1 against Marquette since that game. No big deal. But they get to the NCAA tournament. They destroy everyone. 6 straight wins by double figures. And so when Dan Hurley says this team reminds him of that, I'd be scared, like I said, if I was a college basketball fan, okay? And I can see the comparison being a UConn guy. First of all, he didn't say it, but I think he did say it actually. He said, the point guard spot just wasn't good enough last year. And we don't say that disparagingly to our buddy Hassan Diarra, who, by the way, just signed a contract overseas, so we're happy for Hassan. But, when you have 2 years of Tristan Newton, who ended up being a second-round pick, who ended up playing in the NBA, who ended up being the Final Four MVP, most outstanding player in 2024, it's a big drop-off when you lose him. And I said from the beginning, you can go back to tweets I had in Maui. I said he's the biggest X factor. People are going to talk about Steph Castle, who ended up winning Rookie of the Year. Could talk about Donovan Clingan, top 10 pick. It was not having that true point guard that hurt UConn. Well, they have it this year with Silas Demery. I think the other thing that they have that to me is really important is they have depth, okay? He mentioned it, but it's a strength in numbers thing. But it was funny. I mentioned this on the Torres on UConn page a few days ago, but you look at their second team. I think you could argue their second team would be an NCAA tournament team. And I know every team says that about their second. I'm being serious, okay? Their starting group, I'm not going to spend too much time breaking down their depth chart, but Silas Demery, I mentioned their point guard. Braylon Mullins, a McDonald's All-American. I think the next 3 will be Solo Ball, who was All Big East second team last year, Alex Caravan, 4th year as a starter, and Terrace Reed. Here's their second team, though. Malachi Smith, who averaged double figures at Dayton last year. Jacob Furphy, who dominated for Team Australia in the U19 championships earlier this summer. Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross, 2 players that are 4th year in the program, and Eric Ryba, as I said, a McDonald's All-American. Now, maybe Jalen Stewart starts and another guy comes off the bench. The point I'm trying to make, their second team could legitimately hang with, decent teams in college basketball. And so I just bring it up because when Dan Hurley says that this team reminds him of that team, I think you got to be really, really, really excited as a UConn fan. And I think the last part that he said really excited me as a UConn fan as well. It is that basically, I think it's the defensive side. And if you go back to the 2 UConn teams that won national championships, offensively, they were great, but defensively, they were great as well, especially 2024 when they had Donovan Clingan. And last year, for all of the issues that you could point to, the point guard, the that, the injuries, it was the defense. They just didn't have the size, the rim protection, the on-the-ball defense. And I think as importantly, I just don't think they had the dudes and they didn't have the depth where if somebody wasn't playing well, you kind of had to keep riding with them, right? Well, this year, as I said, they go a legitimate 10 deep. I think they're going to be really good. I think Dan Hurley is quietly very excited about this team. If you're a UConn fan, man, I'd be very excited. By the way, UConn officially dropping their full schedule, their full out-of-conference schedule on Tuesday before our show. Exhibition game against Michigan State. And then from there, the gauntlet begins. Home against Arizona, home against Texas, at Kansas, neutral site games against Illinois, against BYU, against Florida. Yeah. Listen, we're excited about college football kicking off week 0. College hoops can't get here soon enough either. All right. I think that's it for this episode of the Aaron Torres Pod. Producer Matt, we have any interesting comments in the chat? If not, it's okay. A lot of John Wall stuff. We talked about John Wall earlier in the show. I'll tell you what. I think it's just best for us to go ahead and get out of here. A couple things. One, again, thank you to our partners, Circa Casino. Matt and I will be in Vegas on Thursday. No show tomorrow. Producer Matt will be traveling. I'll be traveling Thursday morning. But Thursday will be live from the Circa Casino in Vegas. But I want to remind you, launch party in Kentucky on Saturday night? Saturday all day, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. As I've mentioned, Derek Stevens, the Circa crew, they do nothing small. It's going to be great. There will be a watch party for the Sam Houston State Western Kentucky game, prizes, giveaways, all of that. Check it out. And I've said it a few times now. If you're going to be there, or if you go to Circa Casino in Kentucky at any point, or if you go to the Vegas one, this is what I need you to do. Tag me at Aaron_Torres. Tag Circa Sports. We'll give you a free t-shirt out of the Aaron Torres Media merch store. So if you're a Kentucky fan and you're at the Kentucky property, we'll give you one of those Hope and Pope t-shirts. If you're a fan of another school, we'll find you a t-shirt that you like. We'll take good care of you at Circa Sports at Aaron_Torres. All right. We're going to go ahead and get out. Oh, by the way, SeatGeek. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. Get $20 off your first purchase. We love SeatGeek. All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate all of your support. It is time for us to go, though. Thank you for listening on a Tuesday night. We're fired up. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-ed. Unblock me, bro. I'll be back Thursday night from Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. See you all Thursday. Aaron Torres Pod. By the way, that show, we will do over-under win totals and whatever else is going on in the world of college football.